Number 4 is certification compliance open meeting law.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. The agenda is set. This is for a hearing for the airport. We have public comment. We have 2 people like to speak. Is there anybody virtual?
No.
Mr. Steve Bimming?
Hi.
Are you doing a presentation before we make public comment?
Yeah, great chair by new introduction.
Yeah, sorry, I did not know that. Thank you.
Yeah, just to introduce the public hearing. So Sawyer County is part of the airport system in the state of Wisconsin. We work under the Bureau of Aeronautics, which gets funding and direction from the FAA at the federal level. The airport, we're considered a general aviation airport in Wisconsin, and annually get appropriated what they call entitlement dollars from the Bureau of Aeronautics, which obtains those funds from the FAA. There are specific uses for those funds. We cannot use them for operational expenses, but generally they are for improvement projects, maintenance of the pavements, the fuel system, those types of things at the airport. And as part of our working with the Bureau of Aeronautics, we maintain what they call a plan of work, or some might call it a capital improvement list with the Bureau, so that as funds are available, we have things eligible for use. There used to be what they called they maintain 2 lists at the Bureau. There used to be like a anticipated projects and then petition projects. And really nowadays they've just gone to petition projects. And so we try to keep our project list current so that as funding is available, or when they show need to justify receiving funds from the FAA, our airport has a full list. So the reason for the public hearing tonight is that we're petitioning for the projects that were listed in the public notice. And I'll just run through those. Acquire snow removal equipment, airfield markings, land acquisition for airport development, seal coat and crack fill airport pavements, construct snow removal equipment, shelter/building, purchase brush hog attachment, rehabilitate, renovate, or reconstruct terminal building, develop hangar sites, relocate fuel system, and then clear and maintain runway approaches as stated in Wisconsin Administrative Code Transportation 55 and any necessary related work. So the list of projects, again, we worked with the Bureau of Aeronautics to put together, and they're actually all items that we had in our previous plan of work that are expiring. You can petition for these items, and then after 5 years, every 5 years they expire, and you have to re-up them to make them current, which makes them eligible to apply funding to. Some of these items, like airfield markings and seal coat, are state programs, so we don't usually do those things ourselves or even bid them out. When the airfield markings are determined to be inadequate, the state will put together a number of airports, bid that out to a contractor who will come in and redo the markings. Same thing with seal coat and crack fill. When we need to, we can do some of those things ourselves, but generally when there's going to be a big seal coat project or crack fill, they'll pull up some airports, put the project out for bid, and then assess our entitlement funds for the amount of work for our airport. Similarly, snow removal equipment. That's one thing that we've actually had in motion here for the last year. And probably the primary reason we need to re-up our petition is we need to make that a current item so that we can have the state bid out a new piece of snow removal equipment. As you're all aware, our snow blower specifically has been struggling. It's had to be rebuilt the last couple of years, and we've had a lot of downtime. So we're in the process to get a new snow blower as an attachment to the end loader. Other items on the list, land acquisition is something generally every airport tries to keep on their project list. And it's not that there's a piece of land that we'd like to acquire. It's if a piece of land becomes available in proximity to the airport where we want to consider it, we want to have it within the project list so that we can use our entitlement dollars for that purpose. Snow removal equipment building's been in the county's list for a long time. It's just not a high priority item, and we've got a couple other things in front of it. Similarly, the brush hog attachment, renovate the terminal building, and develop hangar sites have all been on the list for quite a while, but they're not current priorities. We have other projects already happening that have been petitioned before and are happening, such as the master plan and the rehabilitation or resurfacing of the primary runway that will consume all of our entitlement dollars that we have accrued and going forward for the next few years, unless we receive a discretionary grant or some other appropriation that the Bureau gets from the FAA. So I guess just to recap, the project list are items we've had petitioned before, and we're just re-upping them to make them current and eligible for future allocations of entitlement funding. So I know there was some phone calls I received. We're not applying for any new projects or new grants. This is our regular stream of entitlement dollars that we're allocated and how we can use them. And then when we go ahead and use them, in this, it does vary. So I don't know if I mentioned the entitlement on average is in the $150,000 range annually. Recent years, it's been up at $166,000. They added money in. There's some years where it's lower depending on when the federal government redoes their budget, but it's generally in that range. And then our match is anywhere from nothing to 5% or 10% usually. In recent years, it's been nothing because during the ARPA money and COVID related and the bipartisan infrastructure, the government allocated money for the match portion. So we've got a few years here of no match. And then when there is a match, whether it's 5% or 10%, depends on if there's state money coming into the project and what type of project it is. If it's a safety project, it'll be lower. If it's a revenue generating project, it'll be higher. So I can't just tell you on a year to year basis, it's changing. But when there is a match, we do a budget in our capital improvement list here at the county for the money we set aside. So we have actually money accrued in the capital project account for the airport that we've not paid in because we've been accruing. We have entitlement dollars on account at the state going back to 2019's allocation. And we have all of 20, 21, and 22 sitting there. And that's because with their direction, we've been accruing them because we know we've got some very expensive projects with the master plan and the runway rehabilitation that are going to use up all of those entitlement dollars. And so the purpose of the public hearing is to put the project list out there. There are no plans as have been requested on, there's no building plans for a snow removal building because that's not a current priority. And it's also just to allow general comment on the airport itself. That's our opportunity for the public to make those comments. So I'll cease my introduction at that point.
One of the big things that we're doing right now, and this is for the record for people who are going to watch us later, is we are working on our master plan as well. And there's a website that's set up for our master plan where you can track the progress, and there are going to be public involvement meetings as part of that process that we're probably going to host here as well. So I think that the soonest that we could have a public involvement meeting for the master plan is going to be around the end of the year. But that's also going to be in the paper and put on the agenda for the committee. But we're just going to be apprising the committee that we're having the meetings. They're not actually going to be board supervisor meetings. It's just public meetings that anyone can attend to. There's not a voting body that's going to be present, just the engineers who are going to construct or orchestrate the meetings. In the past, Ron, I'm sure you're familiar. Remember, we used to do the 6-year improvement plans. The state's moved away from that a little bit now, but typically whatever you have in your 6-year improvement plan, whenever you do a petition, you put all those things in there as well too. Because if you do have extra funding come in, or you have the availability to do something, if it's out of the petition, you can't do it. It's really nice having Andy here.
No, public, I apologize. I didn't realize that. Mr. Steve Bing.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on here. My concerns about the airport are more general in nature. Having reviewed the agenda, I didn't really see a plan, so I couldn't reference any information regarding this hearing. To me, it feels like an airport that carries 0 commercial passengers annually probably doesn't feel like a municipal airport. So I think when we start talking about operational expense on an annual basis and what current state, what future state, as we track those expenses through and what those mean to the county. And I see in this grant application or this entitlement application, there's some snow removal equipment. So is there an associated operating expense with that from a labor perspective? And does that take resources from other items in Sawyer County? And I guess the parts that I'd like to see would be economic review, that we could measure what these spending and what happens to our economy here in Sawyer County with or without this spend, that you kind of have your current state and your project work and your future state and how those impacts work. The other thing I kind of noticed is the airport tends to be along a river, and it looks like it's the Nemocoggan River. So I do believe there would be some environmental impacts. So when we do talk about land acquisitions, is this even the right spot? Or is there another spot in Sawyer County that maybe fits a little better and maybe has some cheaper land that can be safer to the community? My last thing would be, I went to the airport section on the county website and there's nothing there. So that's what kind of got me leading in a direction of, well, how many passengers do we have? So how many unique flights do we have? How many unique aircraft do we have going in and out of the airport? So I feel like this is a pretty underutilized resource. And if it's going to be using, say, 150 per year or X per 6 years, does that get weighed against our other capital improvement projects throughout the county? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zomer.
Linda Zilmer, Village of Birchwood resident, Edgewater property owner. And it's been almost 20 years now that I've been attending meetings and hearings about the Sawyer County Airport. I've seen the heavy hand of county government applied to the neighbors. I've seen expansion projects going on and yet improvements being made despite it being along the scenic riverway. I saw Rebecca Roker when she worked for Von Briesen come here and have the county do a rezone of all the airport land to industrial without a notification to the town, to the DNR, or the National Park Service. And that concerns me because as the airport is utilized, is the intention to then also make land available for industrial uses. I don't think the airport belongs there. And to continue to put more money in it, especially as wintertime traffic seems to be now more of an issue, and with the jets and requiring de-icing, things that maybe were not environmental impacts in the past, maybe so now. Prior to this meeting, I emailed you all an email, and it has a list of questions and concerns. I would like to make that part of this public hearing record. Number one, in that document, I included all the minutes and the airport reports from January through June, and it talked about the formation of the committee that's writing a master plan. And this is a public airport. I don't think the county board approved creating an ad hoc committee. And so the public is left in the dark. And part of my previous requests were to find out what these projects were. And just now, only just now, am I hearing that there's a plan of work. Well, if there's a plan of work, that could be shared. What are the priorities, or what are the things that aren't the priorities? I mean, I attend all the meetings. I kind of know what's going on, but why can't that be provided to the public prior to a public hearing? So at this point, until there's a master plan, and a master plan that includes the possibility of looking to resiting the airport, my simple public comment is do not pass the resolution and assume the responsibilities. But if it's simply a matter of, as was explained only just now at the start of the hearing, that this is like a 6-year renewal and there's a plan that exists, maybe this goes forward, but I'm just really disappointed in how this has been handled from a public information standpoint.
Thank you. Is there anybody online then? Or- Yeah.
I have a comment. I'm a little confused. I'm looking at the agenda for tonight and it says 6:30 PM.
The Public Works meeting is at 6:30,
So what is it?
public hearing.
Okay, excuse me.
I think what happened, the public hearing agendas got overridden with the committee. So if somebody clicked on the most current public hearing agenda tonight, they would have seen 6:30 and they would have seen your committee agenda.
Yeah, the previous agenda I had as part of the Public Works. A little confusing. What? So is this meeting legally noticed?
It was legally noticed in the newspaper, yeah, and it was changed a couple of times, so it was there originally, but then we had an addition to another regular meeting. It got split, and it's just that. So it's been there for quite a while, that's probably 2 weeks.
It's been noticed in the paper 2 weeks, just like it has to be. Thank you. Can we close the meeting now, or?
Yeah, I would say no public comment.
So there's no other public comment. Did you have a comment, Mr. Zone? Regarding the hearing?
No, I was just a little confused on the agenda.
Okay,
I looked at the previous agenda and had it in your agenda, the public hearing. And then I looked at the new agenda that didn't, so.
thank you. So if there's no other public comment, we'll close the hearing. And adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. And at 6:30, we'll have the Public Works meeting.